I came back to my beachfront home in America with the ocean wind still stuck in my hair and a long road behind me. While I was away in Europe, I kept picturing this porch and this quiet. Grandpa used to say the house was my safe corner, and I believed him. The last time I checked the value, it sat a little over $711,000, which sounded big on paper, but to me it was simply home. I drove into Oceanside and turned onto Seaglass Drive with my hands relaxed on the wheel, ready to stop thinking and start living again. Then I saw two cars in my driveway. A dark truck and a silver sedan, both parked like they belonged. I slowed down, telling myself it had to be a mistake, but the closer I got, the worse it looked. On the drive down, I kept remembering the last talk I had with Grandpa before he got sick. He told me, "Don't let anyone twist my words when I'm gone." While I was in Europe, I also got odd messages from Marina. Little comments about the beach place, never direct but enough to make my stomach tighten. That is why I didn't come alone. 2 days earlier, I met Evan Sinclair at a small office in San Diego. He checked the public records, made copies, and sealed them in a thick envelope. "If anyone tries to claim what isn't theirs," he said, "paper ends the argument." He agreed to meet me near the house when I arrived, and he waited close by while I walked up first. I hoped I wouldn't need him, but I did. Boxes were stacked near my garage. A toy wagon sat in the yard. A bright welcome mat covered my plain old one. I parked on the street instead of pulling in because my gut was already warning me. I walked up the path and saw a pair of men's boots by my door. I tried my key once. The lock didn't move. I tried again, slower, and felt my face burn when it still wouldn't turn. I knocked, firm and clear. The door opened fast, and my sister's husband, Caleb, filled the doorway like a wall. Over his shoulder I saw my hallway, but it didn't feel like mine anymore. Different rug, cluttered shoes, my shell picture hanging crooked. Caleb stared at me and snapped, "Get out. This is my house." The words hit me so hard I went quiet for a beat. Then I heard laughter from inside, light and sharp. My sister, Marina, stepped into view with a tall glass in her hand, smiling like she was enjoying a show. "Marina," I said, "what is going on?" He shrugged. "We moved in. Grandpa left it to both of us." "I didn't agree to you moving in," I said. "And you locked me out." Caleb leaned forward, eyes hot. "You've been gone," he said. "You don't get to show up and act like you still run this place." Before I could answer, two older faces appeared behind Marina. Her mother-in-law, Sharon, crossed her arms tight. Her father-in-law, Gordon, stood stiff and sunburned, watching me like I was the problem. Sharon said, "Marina told us you left for good." "I traveled," I said. "I never gave up my home." Marina laughed again. "You're always so serious. It's just a house." "It's my house," I said, and my voice surprised me with how steady it sounded. Gordon lifted his chin. "If it's shared, then it's shared," he said. "Marina has rights." I looked past them down the hall to Grandpa's photo still hanging by the door. He was smiling in it, calm as ever. I pointed at the picture. "He didn't give this place to Caleb," I said. "And he didn't give it to your parents." Caleb stepped closer, chest out. "I said get out," he yelled. "This is my family's home now." That was the moment my shock turned into something clean and hard. I looked at Marina because her face was the one I knew. "So you told them it was yours," I said. "You let them believe I'm nothing." Her smile wobbled, then came back forced. "We needed a place," she said. "You weren't here." It made sense. It didn't make sense. It was a story they had repeated until they liked it. They'd moved their things into my rooms and decided that was proof. I could see it in the way Sharon stood near my couch, guarding it. I could see it in the way Caleb held the door like he was the gate. My heart was pounding, but I remembered Grandpa's voice from years ago. "Breathe first, speak second." I took one slow breath and kept my eyes on Marina. "You knew I'd come back," I said. "You just thought you could scare me." Caleb scoffed. "You have no idea who you're messing with." I didn't shout. I didn't step back. I simply said loud enough for all of them to hear, "You're finished here." Marina blinked. Sharon's mouth opened, ready to argue. Gordon shifted, suddenly unsure. Caleb's confidence cracked for a second, and I saw it. I reached into my bag and touched the edge of the folder I'd carried the whole way home. Then I moved forward, straight past Caleb's shoulder, because I refused to stand on my own porch like a stranger. At the same time, a man in a dark suit stepped up beside me, calm and neat, with eyes that didn't flinch. His name was Evan Sinclair and he held a thick envelope like it was nothing. The change in the air was instant. Marina's smile vanished. Caleb's jaw dropped. Sharon's eyes widened and Gordon's hand twitched as if he wanted to grab something and couldn't find it. Evan looked at me, then at the people inside my home and said in a quiet, even voice, "Ma'am, I believe they'll want to see what's inside this." Evan didn't push past anyone the way Caleb had tried to push past me. He stepped inside like he belonged there because the facts belonged there. His suit was simple, his hair neat, and his face calm in a way that made the whole room feel suddenly smaller. The ocean light came through the windows and fell across the living room, and for the first time since I arrived I felt my breathing slow down. I stood near the entryway and looked around as if I was seeing my own home through someone else's eyes. The couch had a new throw blanket in a loud pattern. A stack of mail sat on my side table like it had been sorted by strangers. My shell bowl, the one Grandpa brought me from a trip years ago, was pushed to the corner and filled with coins and keys that weren't mine. Every detail felt like a handprint on something private. Caleb tried to laugh, but it came out rough. "Who are you supposed to be?" he demanded, as if being loud could rewrite reality. Evan opened his envelope and slid out a folder without any hurry. "My name is Evan Sinclair," he said evenly. "I'm an attorney. And I'm here because what you're saying and what the public records say are not the same." He didn't aim his words like a weapon. He delivered them like a simple report, the way a person says it's going to rain. Marina lifted her chin and forced a bright smile that didn't reach her eyes. "We have rights," she said. "Grandpa meant for it to be shared." I looked at her and it hurt in a place I couldn't point to. "Grandpa cared about both of us," I said. "But that doesn't mean you get to lock me out and move your whole family in." I kept my voice low because I refused to match the noise around me. "You made your choice. You chose the lock." Sharon stepped forward, her lips tight with anger. "Marina told us she owned this place," she snapped. "She told us you abandoned it." "I traveled," I said. "I didn't vanish. I didn't sign anything away. And I didn't give anyone permission to live here." I turned to Marina again. "You told them it was yours." Marina's eyes flashed. "I told them what I had to tell them," she said. "We needed a home and you weren't here. It was sitting empty." "It wasn't empty," I said. "It was mine." Evan moved toward my dining table, the same table where Grandpa used to sit with his newspaper and a plate of toast. He set the folder down gently as if he respected the wood itself. Then he placed two neat stacks of paper side by side. I could tell by the way he lined them up that he'd done this many times and never needed drama to win a case. "First," he said, tapping the left stack, "this is the earlier plan when your grandfather intended the property to be shared." Marina's shoulders relaxed for half a second, like she thought that sentence alone proved her point. But Evan didn't stop there. He tapped the right stack. "And second, this is the updated transfer and recording. This is the final version." Caleb scoffed. "Final according to who?" "According to the county records," Evan replied. "According to what was properly witnessed and filed. According to what can be verified by anyone with the right access." He looked at me briefly, then back at them. "And according to this, the home is legally owned by her." Marina's mouth opened but no sound came out. Sharon leaned over the table like she could stare the truth into changing shape. Gordon shifted his weight, his eyes bouncing between the papers and Marina's face, like he was trying to figure out if he'd been tricked. Evan pointed to the line that mattered most. My name sat there plain and solid like a stone in the ground. It wasn't Marina's name. It wasn't Caleb's. It wasn't Sharon's. It wasn't Gordon's. It was mine, written clearly, recorded cleanly, not fancy, not dramatic, just real. Caleb's face went red. "That's fake," he snapped, and he slammed his palm on the table hard enough to make the papers flutter. "Anyone can print something." Evan didn't flinch. "You can accuse ink all day," he said. "But the record is the record. This isn't a rumor. It's filed. It's traceable. And if you continue to occupy a property you do not own, you are creating a legal problem for yourselves." Marina found her voice again, but it sounded smaller now. "Grandpa wouldn't do that," she said. "He wouldn't cut me out." I swallowed because this part was the part one didn't like. I didn't enjoy winning against my own sister. I just refused to lose my home. "He didn't cut you out to be cruel," I said. "He did it because you tried to corner him. You tried to push him. You thought you could pressure him when he was weak." I kept my eyes on her. And he hated that. Her face twitched. That's not what happened. It is, I said. You weren't there when he cried after you left. You weren't there when he told me he felt used. Sharon straightened up, her anger turning into shock. Marina, she said sharply, you told us this house was yours. Marina's cheeks flushed. I said it was ours, she corrected, but even she didn't sound convinced. She glanced at Caleb like she wanted him to rescue her with another loud speech. But Caleb's confidence was cracking now, and it showed in the way he kept swallowing like his throat had gone dry. Gordon cleared his throat. If this is true, he said slowly, then we shouldn't be here. Caleb snapped his head toward him. Don't start. Evan raised one hand not as a threat, but as a simple stop sign. Listen carefully, he said. This doesn't have to turn ugly. You can leave peacefully, gather your things and move out today. Or this becomes a police matter. If officers arrive and confirm ownership, the situation changes fast. The room went quiet in a way that felt heavy. Even the ocean outside seemed louder now, waves rolling in and breaking like a steady clock. I could hear a gull cry, and it made me think of how normal the world still was beyond my front door. Inside, my family was falling apart over a lie, but outside the tide didn't stop. Marina's eyes softened suddenly, and for one moment I saw my sister the way she used to be, barefoot in the kitchen laughing at burnt pancakes, whispering secrets when we were kids. Then her expression shifted again, hardening into something defensive. So what? She said. You're going to throw me out? I didn't want to say yes. I wanted an easier story. I wanted a version where she apologized the second she saw me, where Caleb stepped aside, where Sharon and Gordon looked ashamed, where my house became mine again without a fight. But that wasn't what happened. I said very clearly, you threw yourself out when you changed my locks. Caleb made a sound like he wanted to argue, but Evan slid one more page forward. An official printout with stamps and numbers that looked boring, which is exactly why it was powerful. The boring parts are the parts that hold. Evan looked at them all one by one. This is not a debate, he said. This is a decision point. Pack up and leave, or we call law enforcement and handle it the formal way. I didn't smile, not really. But something inside me settled. For the first time since my key failed in the lock, I felt like the ground under my feet was mine again. After Evan laid the papers on my dining table, the room stayed quiet in a strange way, like everyone was waiting for someone else to blink first. Caleb's loudness didn't vanish, but it changed. It became smaller, sharper, the kind of noise people make when they know they're losing. Marina kept staring at my name on the documents like she could erase it with her eyes. Sharon and Gordon looked confused, caught between anger and embarrassment, like they had just realized they'd walked into a mess they didn't understand. I didn't want to drag this into a bigger fight. I didn't want neighbors staring or officers on my porch. I wanted my home back, my peace back, my simple life back. So I gave them a chance I didn't even feel they deserved. I stood up straight, looked at Marina first and said, pack your things. You have 1 hour. Caleb barked out a laugh, but it didn't sound proud anymore. You're not serious, he said, waving one hand like he could brush me away. I pulled out my phone and held it in front of me. I am, I said. My voice stayed calm, but my hands were tight around the phone and my heart was beating fast. 1 hour. That's it. Marina stepped closer, and for a moment she tried a softer face, the one she used when we were kids, and she wanted me to share something. Please, she said. Don't do this. We're family. I looked at her and felt that old pain rise up, the kind that comes from knowing someone knows you well enough to hurt you on purpose. You moved into my house while I was away, I said. You changed my locks. You told your husband and his parents it belonged to you. That's not family. That's taking. Sharon made a sound of protest like she wanted to call me selfish. Gordon stared at the floor. Caleb rolled his eyes and muttered something under his breath that I didn't bother to catch. Evan stood to the side, quiet as a shadow, watching and listening, letting my words land without interruption. He didn't need to argue for me. The papers already had. The hour that followed felt long and short at the same time. My home filled with movement and noise, but it wasn't the noise of honest packing. It was the noise of delay. Caleb moved slowly on purpose, opening drawers too hard, slamming them shut like he was trying to punish the furniture. Marina went from room to room, picking up small things, then setting them down again, like she couldn't accept that she was really leaving. Sharon complained loudly, saying things like, "This is unfair," and "I can't believe she'd do this." as if I had been the one who broke in. Gordon carried boxes but kept sighing, shaking his head like the whole world was wrong. I stayed near the kitchen watching them like a guard in my own house. I hated that. I hated needing to be watchful. I hated thinking about what they might try to take. I kept my eyes on the hallway that led to my bedroom, and every time Caleb disappeared down it, my stomach tightened. I didn't trust him. I didn't trust the way he had screamed at me at the door. People who act like that don't stop just because paper proves them wrong. At the 40-minute mark, Marina came back into the living room and stood by the window. The ocean was bright behind her, sunlight bouncing off the water like nothing bad had happened. She crossed her arms and said, "You could just let us stay for a while. We can pay you. We can give you money each month." "How much?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer wouldn't matter. She hesitated. "I don't know," she said. "A few £100? Maybe more later." Evan's head turned slightly and I could feel his attention sharpen. I kept my expression flat. "No," I said. "And don't offer me pounds like this is some cute bargain. This is America. This is my house. And you don't get to rent my kindness after you tried to steal my life." Marina's face tightened and her softness disappeared. "You always act like you're better," she snapped. I didn't raise my voice. "I'm not better," I said. "I'm just not lying." When the hour ended, they were still not fully out. Not even close. Caleb stood in the hallway with his arms full of clothes, not moving, as if he thought he could win by refusing. Sharon sat on the couch again like she was daring me to touch her. Gordon kept carrying boxes to the porch, but he moved like a man walking through a dream, unsure how he ended up there. I looked at the clock. Then I looked at Evan. He didn't tell me what to do. He simply nodded once like he was saying, "You're allowed to protect yourself." So I made the call. My voice sounded steady when I spoke to the dispatcher, but my chest felt tight. I told them the truth in simple words. I owned the house, I had proof, and people were refusing to leave. I didn't enjoy saying it. I didn't enjoy needing it. But I did it anyway because I wasn't going to be bullied in my own home. The police arrived not long after. 2 officers walked up my steps with calm faces and clear eyes. One was Officer Daniels and the other was Officer Monroe. They weren't rude. They weren't dramatic. They were firm in the way people are firm when they've seen too many excuses and too many fights. Officer Daniels asked, "Are you the homeowner?" "Yes," I said, and my voice shook just a little. I hated that it shook, but I didn't hide it. "I have the documents." Evan handed them the folder. I showed my ID. The officers looked through the papers carefully, asked a few direct questions, and the answers were simple. Officer Monroe turned toward the living room and raised his voice just enough to be heard. "Ma'am," he said to me, "this is your residence." Then he looked at Caleb. "Sir, you and your family need to leave the property now." Caleb immediately tried to argue, talking fast, pointing at Marina like she was proof of something. Marina started crying, the kind of crying that comes with looking over your shoulder to see if it's working. Sharon began lecturing the officers like she was in charge, saying they didn't understand, saying family was complicated, saying I was cruel. The officers didn't react to the noise. They didn't get angry. They didn't need to. Officer Daniels repeated the instruction. "Leave now." Officer Monroe stepped closer to Caleb and told him clearly that refusing would make things worse for him. Caleb's voice rose again, and that's when the whole mood shifted. It wasn't about feelings anymore. It was about rules. The officers told everyone to step outside. They warned them. Caleb tried to puff up his chest, but that didn't work with people trained to handle grown men who yell. Marina kept wiping her face and whispering, "This isn't fair." But the word fair didn't belong to her that day. In the end, they walked out with bags and boxes. Sharon muttered under her breath. Gordon avoided my eyes. Caleb looked furious, but there was fear under it now because he knew he couldn't shove his way past the law. Marina lingered at the bottom step, looking back at the house like she still expected me to change my mind. I didn't. Officer Daniels took notes and used a word that made my stomach twist even though it was true. Occupied. I hated hearing it said about my home like my life had been reduced to a problem on a clipboard. But I reminded myself that naming a thing doesn't create it. It only makes it real enough to deal with. Before the officers left, Officer Monroe asked me if I wanted to press charges. He explained my options in plain language, including a formal notice so it would be on record. My hands were still shaking, but my mind was clear in the way it gets clear when you finally stop hoping and start acting. Yes, I said. Do it. After they were gone, the house felt too quiet. The silence wasn't peaceful yet. It was empty like a room after shouting. I walked from space to space, checking what they touched, what they changed, what they might have damaged out of spite. I found scratches in the hallway floor where a heavy box had been dragged. One cabinet hinge in the kitchen was bent, and a closet lock box I kept for important items was missing. I stood in that closet for a long moment with my hand on the shelf, feeling the anger rise again, hot and clean. Evan told me to take photos and write down everything. So I did. I made a list even though my eyes burned. Later, when I priced repairs and replacements, the total came to $3,840. I could pay it, but it wasn't the point. The point was that they had treated my home like a place they could use up and toss aside. When I finally sat down on my own couch, my couch in my living room, I looked at the ocean through the window and let myself breathe. I told myself the truth over and over until it stayed in my bones. Money can fix a hinge. Money can fix a floor. But money can't fix trust once someone has stomped on it and laughed. That night, after the police cars were gone and Evan had driven away, I sat on my back steps with a blanket around my shoulders and listened to the ocean. The waves came in and went out like they had done it a million times, calm and steady like the world didn't care about shouting or lies. The sky was dark, the air was cool, and my house behind me felt both familiar and strange, like a friend who had been mistreated while I was gone. My phone started buzzing again. At first I ignored it because I already knew who it would be. Then it buzzed again and again until the sound felt like a small hammer tapping the same spot. When I finally looked, it was Marina. She called twice, then left a voicemail, then sent a string of texts that changed tone every few minutes. One message said she was sorry. Another said I was heartless. Another said Caleb was furious. Then she circled back to begging, like if she mixed enough feelings together, one of them would unlock my door. I read her words slowly and I didn't answer right away. I wanted to answer the way I used to, with softness, with excuses, with the hope that if I fixed things I'd be loved. But that part of me felt tired now, like a light that had been on too long. I typed one message and kept it simple. You locked me out. You told them it was yours. You laughed at me when I came home. I won't live with that again. Then I put my phone face down and watched the tide until my breathing felt normal. The next morning I woke up early, not because I wanted to, but because my body still felt on guard. I walked through the house room by room, checking everything again. I opened closets and drawers, looked behind doors, inspected the windows. I hated that I had to do that in my own home, but I also knew it was part of taking my life back. Evan met me later with a locksmith named Marcus Lane and we changed every lock. When the old metal pieces came out and the new ones went in, I felt something loosen in my chest, like a tight knot finally starting to give. After that, I didn't pretend I was invincible. I added 2 simple cameras. One facing the porch and one facing the back gate, because peace isn't just a feeling, it's also planning. I bought a small fireproof safe for my documents, and I placed the folder with Grandpa's papers inside like it was a family treasure. It was strange to treat paperwork like a shield, but that's what it had become. Paper had protected me when people hadn't. A few days later, I hired a handyman named Connor Briggs from a nearby town called Clearwater Cove. He showed up with a quiet smile, a tool belt, and a steady way of moving that made me feel safe. He fixed the cabinet hinge, checked the scratched floor, and tightened a loose railing out back. I paid him $420 and offered him coffee, and he thanked me like I was the one doing him a favor. That simple respect almost made me emotional because it reminded me how normal kindness is supposed to feel. Marina kept trying. She sent more messages saying she wanted to talk like sisters. Caleb sent one too, short and angry, full of blame, like he still thought volume could change the truth. Sharon left a voicemail about family honor, and Gordon texted a weak apology that sounded like it was written with one hand while the other covered his eyes. I didn't reply to any of them. Silence wasn't punishment. Silence was my boundary. On Saturday I drove north to a small place called Harbor Glen, just to walk and breathe where nobody knew my name. I bought a sandwich, sat near the water, and watched boats pass slowly, their white trails fading behind them. I thought about Grandpa and the way he used to watch me carefully when he gave advice, like he wanted to make sure it landed. I could almost hear his voice saying, "Be kind, but don't be easy to use." When I came back home that evening, I parked in my driveway the way I used to. I opened my front door with my own key and stepped inside without fear. The house smelled like salt and lemon cleaner, and the ocean light came through the windows like a promise. I stood there for a moment, not moving, letting it sink in. I hadn't won because I was loud. I hadn't won because I was cruel. I won because I was right, and because I finally chose myself. In America, this beachfront home is mine. And in my life, the line is clear.